Welcome to Real Talk, Real Estate Discussions with Andrew Kirsh. In each episode, Andrew interviews industry leaders. We'll hear their real-time opinions on today's market, their background and unique career highlights, and guidance for newcomers to the industry. You can find this show at www.sklarkirsh.com and on YouTube, LinkedIn, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and more. Now here's the host of Real Talk, Andrew Kirsh.
Welcome to the second episode of the Real Talk podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Kirsh. The more people I talk to, it appears that the rest of 22 is going to be a slow market. The rise in interest rates have completely chilled the real estate industry. There are some deals transacting, but it appears that many groups are waiting until 2023 to get back into the market. In this episode of the Real Talk, I have a conversation with David Schwartzman, the founder of Harridge Development, who is developing some of the largest projects in Los Angeles, including Crossroads in Hollywood, which is just steps from where the Academy Awards take place, and also his redevelopment of the Baldwin Hills Mall. I have a very candid conversation with David as it relates to the real estate industry, the times that we are facing right now, and the political environment, especially in Southern California. I know you will enjoy it. All right. Welcome to another episode of Real Talk. I am honored that my good friend and client, Mr. David Schwartzman, founder of Harridge Development Group, is here to talk to us. David, how you doing?
I'm great, Andrew. How are you?
I'm good. Now, David, this is hopefully is will be one of the greatest hours of your life, other than your wedding, the birth,
in the birth of my children.
Yep.
Yes.
This is
meeting you for the first time.
And when did we meet? We met, I think, at Obika.
In 2012.
12.
Mm-hmm.
Gosh, I feel like I've
had a mixer, a title company mixer.
That's right.
And look and behold now.
And you're all grown up. Fine. Actually, you're not grown up, but you'll never be grown up.
Never be grown up. You're grown
up. Trying to be. Well, there's so much we can get into, David. I feel like Harridge Development Group still flies under the radar, even though I know you won't, well, maybe you will admit this, but others will admit this, and certainly I will. One of the most prolific developers in Southern California. But I feel like there's, if I ever say the name Harridge, a lot of groups may not know you because you like to fly under the radar.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Because I do a lot of entitlements, stuff where I'm going into hearings, public hearings with people. And generally, I think when you're dealing with the public a lot, it's better to be modest than being braggadocious. Many developers are promoters per se, and they listen, from a variety of people. They're very loud. They're on their Twitters. They're on their social media. That's not a way to be. When I'm asking to get projects approved and I'm in front of cities, if I'm sort of going out flaunting this and flaunting that, it just sort of opens up the menu from the city of what they're going to ask me for. And sometimes I think it's better to be quiet and just get through your business and get done. And honestly, my father was raised that way. I mean, I think a lot of times social media, I know it's a newer age thing. And even though I'm 54, I'm probably not part of that crowd. I just feel like I'd rather let my results speak for themselves. I don't need to bang on my drum. At the end of the day, capital partners and lenders all know who I am. And in fact, a lot of the guys that are out there beating on their drums, they don't know who they are, but they pretty much know who we are.
I mean, I always gave you crap because I think we're allowed to say shit since it's my podcast. I'll say
you can do whatever you want.
You're right. This is my show.
This is the Andrew Kirsh Hour.
I remember giving you shit for the longest time because you had a Gmail.
I did.
And not even
now I have my own direct. I listen again. I'm a dinosaur. So I think I'm last of a dying breed. There's a broker in Los Angeles who's a well-known broker who teaches a class at SC, and every year he does a thing where he has 3 different developers come. He has what he calls a corporate developer, a guy maybe who's doing like works at like a company like Douglas Emmett or somewhere like that, or a Kilroy, and then he has like what he calls sort of the small, and then he has like what he says is more of the cowboy developer, and he always says like I'm like the last of a dinosaur.
I probably have used the word cowboy to refer to you more than once, and so
but we're not a cowboy. We might take risks that people don't understand, but I think you have to understand what you're doing, and I've been doing this for 30 years. So I think at the end of the day, we're very calculated in what we do, but we have a different risk profile than other developers have.
Absolutely. And I want to get into the deals that you're currently doing and the deals that you did do in the past that got you to where you are today. But the market, let's talk for a few minutes about today's market. Okay.
Challenging.
Challenging is one word to say the least. I mean, but
there's a lot of opportunity out there right now.
Is it right now, or do you feel like we still need to wait for there to be more blood on the street?
There's starting to be signs of it now. Like I'm buying a deal right now that about 8 months ago, I had offered a number for the site, and they wanted double my price. And they were like, well, the market. And I'm like, well, you're not quantifying risk on this deal. The site's an entitled site. And they said, you're not real. I told them, I said, there's still a lot of risk associated with the site, and I don't think you're valuing the risk properly. And they're like, oh no, we're going to test the market. It's a building deal. And we basically said, this is where we're at. And it went through 2 or 3 buyers over the last 9 months, maybe a year. And then in June of this year, it basically was available. And they had some issues where they have to be out this year. So all of a sudden, my number looked pretty reasonable. And we're getting it for my number.
And so
I wouldn't have gotten that a year ago at this time. I don't get that deal.
Yeah. But what about the capital markets that you rely upon to buy deals? Are they in the market? Are they doing deals?
They are, like where you might borrow before on land at, let's say, SOFR 500. In a good market, SOFR 500 was 5.75%. Now SOFR 500 is 8%. So now that SOFR 500 has become SOFR 700. So that's gone from 5.75 to 10%. So your borrowing costs have doubled. We're doing a lot of stuff with equity right now. Actually, we're buying this deal. We're buying it all equity. We figure we'll put our financing on later when the world's calmed down. I do see the storm is probably, my guess is we're in the worst of it. I watch all these smarter people than me on CNBC in the morning saying, well, if we're in a recession next year, I go, guys, we're already in a recession. We've been in a recession since January. And if you look back, a lot of the reasons why we're not in a recession has to do with political issues and not with, they're calling it a recession. They can't say it's a recession right now going into a midterm election.
Yeah, it's the definition of recession has changed, I guess.
Well, again, it depends which party's in power. The Republicans are now telling you we're in a recession. Democrats will say we're not, but there's videos of Nancy Pelosi in George W. Bush's time saying we're in a recession, 2 negative quarters. So, I mean, we're in a recession, and we're going to be 3 negative quarters. Will probably be this whole year will be negative. Inflation is slowing down. I'm seeing signs of it. I'm building a lot now. I'm starting to see some real drops in some raw materials. And 6 months ago, I had big subs to like work on my jobs. Now I've got 10 guys calling me, and like I didn't sign a contract on a job last week. We're just in the process of signing, and the sub got nervous and goes, I'll give you 10% off. And like, okay. So I went to my guys, like, guys, we need to negotiate now a little further, because I think now is an opportunity. When things are good, everybody's raising and you have no leverage. I think now if you have capital, you actually have the leverage.
So speaking of capital, this past summer, I feel like most of the capital markets took off, not 1 to 2 weeks off of vacation. They were gone the whole summer. They were traveling in Europe. They were just checked out. I thought that we would have a busy fourth quarter where capital providers would need to get to their number and re-enter. But at least on the value add side, it's been pretty much dead.
I think value add is actually a bad proposition right now. I just think value add. I'm not a value add guy. A lot of value add guys, in a low rate of market, think they're very smart. Oh, they're just playing a financing game. I will tell you, if you're a value add guy and you didn't get fixed rate debt, you got a real problem right now if your debt's rolling in the next 12 months.
Yep.
You're going to be in a bad situation. Everything we do is we do the entitlement. We buy the land raw, we entitle it, and then we go and perfect our entitlement by building. So we're building to a much higher margin. And I'm getting construction loans. Lenders still want to do construction loans because the way they view it, it's 2 to 3 years out your construction, and they view that you're entering the market in a much better time. So that's the safest place for a lender to be. There's still equity capital as well. If your returns can work on today's numbers, everybody believes the future is going to be much better.
Okay. I think we had a bit of an internet snag here, but I think we're back on.
Okay.
What about the leverage, though? Are lenders, your construction lenders, requiring more equity, therefore, less leverage?
So I'm in a few different food groups. I about a year and a half ago switched into a build for rent. I started out as a home builder by say, and I always said I was never going to build houses again. But lo and behold, I've got 1,200 units now I'm building across Los Angeles in Ventura County and adding another 1,000. So we're doing a lot of build for rent. So there's a lot of money that wants to be in that space, both equity and debt. It's like a popular space right now. And honestly, in Los Angeles and Ventura, I think we're the only person of size that's doing it. So I'm not having a problem attracting capital. We're doing a lot of apartment stuff. We're doing some high-rise apartments in Hollywood. We have capital on that. A lot of our partners are high net worth, and a lot of developers like to throw out the word high net worth. But I mean, without naming who my partners are, I mean, there are people like they're on the Forbes 400 in the top 30 in the world richest list. I mean, they're very high net worth. So like they're not really as affected by the capital markets as some other people are.
Have you noticed preferred returns increase or promote splits decrease with the changing market?
I haven't had that yet. I have a lot of long-term partners I have repeat business with. And if a partner did that to me, they probably wouldn't see another deal. And we've had a very good track record. And if somebody decided to get, like, let's say predatory with me, yeah, maybe on this deal I'd have to do it, but they might not see the next deal.
Right.
So I think that's really, we probably have about 10 or 12 groups that we're in current projects with, and we don't really have a shortage of LPs. If I had a situation where I had to do it, sure, but then I might not show them another deal.
Let's talk about your track record. Let's go even before that, since very few people know the man, the myth, the legend of David Schwartzman.
You say that to everybody, Andrew, so I got to be careful.
Where did you grow up? Tell us about your background.
I grew up in Fresno, California. My dad was a farmer. I grew up in a small town, not on a farm, but went to a small high school, came to USC, 1986. Had no desire to be in real estate. Did not think of myself as a real estate guy. I wanted to work on Wall Street. Thought I was going to be an investment banker.
Did you go cow tipping in Fresno?
I have done cow tipping, yes. Probably the only interviewer who's ever done cow tipping. I have done cow tipping, yes. I have done it a few times.
I never even heard of what cow tipping is until when I was at Northwestern. We were driving to Indiana for something, and we were in the middle of Indiana, and the guy said, "You want to go cow tipping?" And I said, "What the hell is that?"
It's a rite of passage in a small town. That, and what we used to do in Fresno was funny. We used to have fig orchards, and we would get in our SUVs or our Jeeps, and we drive the fig orchards like there was like an obstacle course, and we drive in between the fig trees at fast speeds. Now, if you hit a fig tree, nothing happens. It's like weighs like 50 pounds. You just knock it over. So it's actually very safe. But we used to go figging, and we used to have our cake parties out in the figs. But so I grew up with that. And then went to USC. Thought I was going to work on Wall Street. Actually thought I was going to go into a family business, which was in the food business. And when I was 21 years old, I was informed by my late uncle, hey, I'm selling this thing. I don't have time to train you. So he sold the business. I actually got a job on Wall Street, lasted about 3 weeks. Realized
that long.
I was basically pledging a fraternity again. So I was like getting calls at like 5 in the morning, go pick up my dry cleaning, do that. I'm like, okay, I don't think this is for me. Basically came back to Los Angeles, went to work for a fraternity brother and his father doing home building, some small deals in the San Fernando Valley. Worked for them for about 18 months, realized after about 18 months, I think I know more than they do.
And this is what, late 80s?
Early 90s.
So before the Northridge earthquake.
Yes.
Yeah. Which was a seminal moment in a lot of real estate developers' career.
We were in a recession. It was the S&L crisis, FDIC. There was a lot of things going on. My late uncle sold his company, and he basically said, why don't you and I, he didn't have any kids, why don't you and I go out and do real estate development? He'd invested with a lot of developers, was not a developer himself. He goes, I'll teach you. So went out and bought 2 or 3 projects with him, 2 in Thousand Oaks, 1 in Fresno. Started building the Fresno project, started building Thousand Oaks. And my late uncle basically had a massive heart attack when I was 25 years old and was hospitalized for 5 months, never really recovered, eventually passed away. I remember sitting in the hospital, and my late aunt, God rest her soul, she died 4 years ago at 99. I said, well, when everything's done, I mean, we'll just sell everything, and you don't want to be in this real estate stuff. She goes, David, she goes, your uncle wasn't a real estate guy. He just could write a check. I can write a check as good as him. Go do it. And she believed in me, and I sort of caught a meteor rise. Sort of had perfect market timing. By 28 years old, I was building 350 homes a year. I was doing about $100 million in sales as a 28-year-old kid in 1996 dollars, which today is probably $250 million a year. So it was overnight, like, wow.
Let me interject though, because this is important. Did you, obviously your aunt and your uncle were instrumental in giving you that boost, but to go from what you were doing with those first couple of deals to what you were then doing 2-3 years later, did you get other outside capital, or was it just family?
I was using them. I was sort of like reinvesting profit building. Then you hit a right question. In 1998, I met some gentlemen that were running money for a company. They sort of kept it initially. They were officing with Roy Disney in Burbank, but I was assuming it was Disney money, Shamrock at the time.
Yep.
And we negotiated JV. They were going to give me $25 million of equity on a 90-10 structure where they put up 90%, I put up 10. And I was like, wow, I'm used to financing everything. I get half the deal now for 10% of the money. This is great. So it turned out the money was Lehman Brothers. So from 1998 till 2008, I did about 35 deals with Lehman. And they were an amazing partner. Got to know many of the guys there very well, got close to a lot of people. 2008, I mean, sort of had, again, everything kept going up. 2008, September 15th, 2008, Lehman files bankruptcy. I go from being a pretty successful guy to overnight having about $500 million of personal recourse on loans.
So, gosh, we could have a 5-hour podcast.
This could be this is a 5-hour story.
So, but when, and I know you've been very open about your story, and so, and people have really relished and appreciated your candor. At what point though, before mid-September 2008, or was there a point that you felt I am overexposed? I have issues. When did you feel that?
So I had a guy I worked with at Lehman that left Lehman in 07, mid 07.
Yeah.
And I remember having lunch with him at the Houston's in Century City, which is no longer. And I was like, Harry, why did you leave? His name was Harry. And he was groomed to be one day maybe the main guy. And I go, why did you leave? And he says, well, 1, I can never be the head guy. 2, Lehman doesn't have any room on their balance sheet for any errors. And I go, what are you talking about? He goes, we're in a downturn right now. If it gets a lot uglier, I'm not sure they survive. And I was like, really? And it's sort of in the back of my mind, I started thinking about it. And then 07 was going on. I mean, everything seemed to be okay. The housing market had actually already slowed, but commercial apartments, everything was very strong. It was just the for sale housing. Okay.
And what type of deals did you have with Lehman?
Mostly housing sites for sale. And I was doing a lot of land development, a lot of home building. I had about 17 deals at the time they failed. I had a few apartment deals, but I had a lot of housing. My apartment deals are not what got me in trouble. If it was just apartment deals, I could have probably worked those out. It was the land in the Central Valley, in Sacramento and all up the coast that got me when the market went illiquid, that went to zero. I mean, there was no value. There was no bid.
So the exposure that you faced overnight when Lehman went bankrupt, describe the structure that you and Lehman had with your lenders and why you were holding the bag.
So technically, I had an indemnity from Lehman Brothers Holdings. So whenever I signed a guarantee,
joint venture,
through the joint venture, but I had an uptick to holdings. Mm-hmm. I also had another guarantee from a company called Lehman Ali, which was actually a solvent company and stayed solvent, but you couldn't figure out through the bankruptcy myriad how to get to that company. It was like very convoluted. When Lehman, and I didn't have general recourse obligations, but when Lehman filed bankruptcy, I had what's called a bad boy guarantee, which is very important to know. All my bad boys triggered. So by their filing bankruptcy, they triggered my BK. Now, but the argument was
they triggered your bad boy guarantee.
My bad boy. Yeah. There was an argument which I later won in bankruptcy court, which said I actually had a tier called Lehman Ali and Lehman Pammy that never filed. See, people looked to the next company and said, "Oh, that's a BK," but the company that was the indemnitor with me never filed. People ran into court and said, "Oh my God, he's got a problem." I was actually trying to service my debt. I couldn't do it, but I was trying. And I actually, personally, I bled myself a lot doing it. And looking back, I probably should have taken a different strategy, but I thought I could keep the ship afloat. And so I was servicing the debt. And then one or two of my lenders went on what's called a writ of attachment. And it was very confusing for a judge to understand, but they got a writ granted against me, and I had no choice but to file personal bankruptcy, which I did on June 1st, 2009.
You were how old at that time?
I was 41 years old.
41 years old.
It was bad. It was really, it was like, listen, I'll tell you, because I think people are going to have this. Some people are going to go through stuff like this, I think, coming. This is not 2008, so I'm not saying that at all. I don't think it's anywhere near that. But there are going to be some people who have some challenging portfolios, are going to have some real issues. I had worked for 18 years, had known nothing but success, and now I was looking at serious failure. And so I remember talking to my mother and my late aunt. My mom's still here, God willing, 93 years old today, 3 weeks ago. And then both saying, now this is where you're going to build your character. And you know what? We think you have what it takes, and you're going to get through it, and you're going to come out stronger. And I was like, oh, you guys are crazy. But lo and behold, we did. But it was about 2.5 years of it was an alley fight between fighting with lenders, everything.
By the way, did your aunt, did you lose any money for your aunt during this Lehman bankruptcy?
No, in fact, she actually, I'd paid her off a lot of her money. Mm-hmm. And then because I unwound ventures, and then she basically came back in through some structures and doubled down with me. And she helped. And then the irony of the whole deal is Lehman went bankrupt, and the gentleman that ran Lehman Real Estate ended up being the other person that bailed me out. So it's a guy named Mark Walsh, and he came in and recapped like 2 or 3 of my deals in 2010 when nobody would really talk to me. And the fact that he showed confidence in me with his own personal money then helped me get confidence back with other capital groups in the market.
Yeah. So what was the stigma that your the David Schwartzman reputation, which we could do a whole podcast on that, but in 2009 and 10, was it like a pariah where?
Yeah, I was going through a personal bankruptcy. I remember meeting with a lot of people, a lot of developers who said, "Oh, I've got money. I can help. I can be your partner." And everybody tried to be very predatory. A lot of these guys, I'd sit in meetings and they'd say how they had money. I'd say, "Well, what kind of liquidity you have?" And they'd say their number. I go, "Dude, I'm in bankruptcy and I have more money than you. Because I'm funding my dip." I go, "How are you going to help me?" So it was very humbling for me. Pre-2008, I was actually much cockier than I am now. I was like a walking disaster, I would say. And I think it really humbled me a lot and came to know who your friends really are and who are not your friends. And there's a lot of, listen, I'm going to give a quote, and I use this quote all the time. Bankers are like umbrellas. When it's raining you can't find one. And when it's dry, you have 20 of them. Okay. Which saying is in good times, they're your best friends.
Sure.
Bad times, they're like scrambling. You can't find them. So I've tried to be selective in who I partner with and who I do stuff with. And I mean, most of my partners now, I think we've proven ourselves. You have a long relationship and you're solid partners. And I think you have solid partners. That's a lot of what you need.
Now you have much more diversification with respect to your equity partners versus.
I have 10 different LPs or 12.
Yeah, so if one goes down, it's not going to take down the entire.
It's actually an opportunity to come in, with another one. Yeah. I'm not all in with one group anymore. That will never happen again.
Do you still, though? I mean, is that scarlet letter gone, or I mean, you've done.
Yeah.
Let me ask you.
I bring it up. I don't think. I mean, other than maybe occasionally a Wells Fargo. I mean, naming them like, well, you've had a BK 14 years ago. We won't touch you. I'm like, okay, but I don't want your money anyway. So it doesn't matter. There's the Blackstones of the world. The other guys, they'll lend, and they seem to be able to look past that. But yeah, there is a stigma. I'm not going to tell people there's not, but you work through it and you overcome it.
So you've obviously had two phases of your career, pre-08, post-09.
Yep.
The second phase of your career has been even more successful by magnitudes, right?
Multiple. I know we've done very well. Yeah.
So would you say that the Lehman bankruptcy experience and personal bankruptcy experience led to, in a weird way, you resetting and becoming even stronger and more profitable and smarter?
I think it made me a better businessman. I tell that people all the time. I go, probably the best thing in my business career was going bankrupt. And people say, they go, oh, yeah, sure. No, it really, for me, was because I learned from it. And I evaluate things differently. I decided to more specialize. I used to be more geographic, like all over the state of California. Like I have a deal or two in Northern California, and I have some legacy sites in the Central Coast. But generally, we are LA, Ventura, Orange County development. We're not like doing projects in Sacramento. We're not here. We're not there. We're very focused. And everything we do is mostly residential in nature, and it requires an entitlement. So we've narrowed our field.
When did you say, or just to yourself, I'm back? Like you just felt comfortable, you were in the market, people were coming to you, you had your umbrella in dry times. How many years did it take?
Probably 4. From when I would say 2014, I felt like, okay, like I was back and sort of clean by 2012 from all that stuff. But then I had to build back a life, and I had a lot of things I sold in 13 that I kept that got me some cash back. 14 was better. 15 was great. 16 was like a quiet year. 17 was good. 19 was an amazing year. 2021 was an amazing year. So it just sort of like, and even like this year, like right now, I view this year as an opportunity. We're buying a lot of sites right now. We're buying like 5 or 6 sites right now. I'm only in the market for like 1 or 2 financings, which is great. I'm getting bids. I mean, yes, are they a little wider than I'd like them to be? Sure. But I've got a big margin in these deals, and it's more, I think I'd rather build in a recession and build at a lower cost and sort of pay more for financing because I can actually drive a better price right now with subcontractors.
So now you have, like you said, 10 or so large institutional private equity and family offices, high net worths who are providing you equity. What, what do you look for in an equity partner?
I want an intelligent partner. A lot of people say, oh, I want dumb money. No, I want a partner because let me tell you, dumb money is great in good times, but in bad times, you want a partner that understands it doesn't panic. I had a partner that at the start of COVID, I was partners with in 2012, and they always seemed like great guys. And at the start of COVID, they stopped funding me on 4 deals. They said, we're not funding. I said, why? And like, well, the market, we're scared. I go, well, dude, but you have a guarantee with me. They said, sue us. So we ended up getting in a little tussle, but we ended up being able to buy them out at huge discounts. Then later on, they're like, my God, you took advantage of us. They go, you guys stop funding. And you made the trade, you agreed. So it worked out well for us. So now I want people that can sort of sit through the storm and that are just good people.
So
I inherited this group. I met them through somebody and I inherited them. So I think this is important in the future to like know who you're like. I'm partners with the group now. I think I knew them for 14 years before I did a deal with them. And now I've done 4 deals in the last 18 months. And they're great guys. And but I had like a 13 or 14 year courtship with them.
So let's talk about Harridge today. You know, how many employees, how many projects, and talk about some of these projects from Baldwin Hills to Crossroads to previously the LA Times. Yeah.
So we have a construction division now that we formed a separate company, has about 16 or 18 employees, and then we have Harridge, which has about 16 or 18 employees, so up to like 40 people. We have 25 projects. We have about 2,000 units we're doing in Southern California as build for rent. We have another about 4,000 single family lots we're entitling. Now they're in various stages of entitlement. Like nothing would be on a program to sell before, let's say 2025. So we're sort of, I look at it as a perfect timing in the market. We have about 8 or 9 multifamily deals, ranging from an 80 unit deal in Northridge. It's a remnant site to 950 apartments, type 1 construction in Central Hollywood, Los Angeles. We have the Crenshaw Mall, which is a mix of different asset classes that we bought last year. A lot of press around it. Not always good, but there was a story behind the press that we bought 45 acres in the middle of Los Angeles for $3 million an acre, which is pretty unheard of. Fully entitled for 3 million feet of development. So on an FAR foot, we paid $40 an FAR foot. And we underwrote the deal to have no NOI in place, and it probably has about $6-7 million of in-place NOI. So the way I look at it, we bought the site for $0. So it's an amazing deal. The neighborhood, actually, there was a group that was protesting a lot and had scared off 3 or 4 buyers. It got national news. They were protesting, marching every week at my house, in front of my office, at my house, at my attorney's house, my land use attorney. They went to my capital partners' offices in New York City. But the day after we closed, noise was gone. It really wasn't as things appeared. It really had nothing to do with a white group buying a property in South LA. It had more to do with they were maybe working with another bidder on the deal and trying to scare off the competition.
The deals that you're transacting, I mean, how are you coming across them? I mean, are they marketed deals? Are these off-market deals? How do you source your deal flow?
Both. I mean, I have a reputation for doing deals that are entitlement sites. So sometimes people know of a deal that call me. It might not be on the market per se. We get a lot of marketed deals. A lot of times people come in and they list properties with brokers, and brokers throw out numbers that are just completely not reasonable. They want to get a listing, and it goes through 2 or 3 trades and rounds. And then we come in 3rd or 4th round on a deal and buy it after the market said property's not worth the initial number. We're never going to be the highest bidder on the site. I would say that we're not, but when we bid, I like to say we're good. We'll close. And that's our reputation. We're close. So people know we'll close. So we're not the high bidder. If you're looking for the high guy, I'm not your guy. So times like this are better for me because now people want certainty of close.
So most of your transactions are Southern California. In fact, yes. A lot of them are infill LA. Over the last 2 to 3 years, we've seen a lot of both residents and operators and developers leave Southern California. They've gone to Austin and Dallas and Phoenix and Vegas and Salt Lake City, but you're here.
And I'm staying here.
You're not leaving.
Nope.
Those lot
guys are gonna get smoked. They're going to get smoked.
What's that?
They're going to get smoked.
In these other markets.
Real estate's local. At the end of the day, real estate's development. I'm not talking about a guy buying a 100-unit apartment building, walking around a cocktail party. Oh, I'm a developer. Like that to me, you buy apartment buildings. You're not a developer. Developer's a guy who buys something, creates something, builds it, or maybe, and I think actually truly has to build it. I mean, in some ways, I've been a lot of times in entitlement and flip. Now we've transitioned to where we're building. But to me, a guy who buys a 200-unit apartment building to change out the cabinets or the appliances calls himself a developer. He's not a developer.
So I want to talk about
and that's 90%. And those guys they're chasing yields and markets. And now those markets overinflated. And you'll see in a downturn, those markets are getting hit the hardest.
Yeah. I mean, you saw the cap rates in Albuquerque were lower than cap rates in LA.
Yeah.
It didn't make sense.
We're the biggest county in the United States. We're not going anywhere. California's economy, even with all of our bad management, is the 6th largest economy in the world.
All right, so let's talk about that management to the extent you can.
Sure.
So you're staying in LA, you're staying in Southern California, yet the regulatory environment, both locally in LA and statewide, is challenging. And
not for the faint of heart.
No, but you're here. You
know why? Because I'll tell you, and that's an advantage we have. We're not afraid of the fight. At most guys, they want to go where it's easy, but the barriers of entry are easier. I want to be in the toughest market for barriers of entry. I don't have to worry about a guy opening up a project across the street from me to compete against me. If I want to do a 300-unit subdivision, first of all, find the land. Second of all, once we're entitled, we have locked our value. We have created. You're not replicating what we do. So that's my whole model. I want to get projects that are so hard to entitle that once it's done, we believe in our ability to get it done, that once it's done, we have created our value. I'm not going to build the best widget. I've always said I'm not the best widget builder out there, but you go to a market like Texas where there's 18,000 lots and another 100,000 behind, you have to build, I have to build $1 a foot cheaper in this guy and be more efficient. Dude, that's not my game. That's too tight a business for me. I like the tough barriers of entry.
But when it takes years to get development approvals and your preferred return is ticking away and causing the development to be so much costlier, how do you underwrite that?
Buy it for less. Got to buy it for less. That's why I say I'm not on raw land. I am not the high bidder. I will always tell people that. But generally, when I go and buy a piece of land, at the end of the day, when it flushes out, okay, I'm not buying it subject to, I'm buying it as is. So there's subject to price and an as is price. Usually the difference in price can be 40, 50%. So I'm taking advantage of the as is price and then I can get it done faster and make up any difference. And generally we have.
And how important is it to have, let's say, covered land plays like even the Crenshaw deal where you're getting NOI while
we're entitled. We're entitled. There was an entitlement in place, and we're building within the existing entitlement. So we're doing some design perfection, but we're building within the existing entitlement. That's why we like that deal so much. I mean, that deal started out in 2019, and there were four buyers before me. I was the 4th buyer. That started out without the Macy's at like $150 million with a guy we know who does a lot of studio stuff. And then with the Macy's, it was over a $200 million trade, $210 million. Then it went to CIM, which is, this is all public knowledge. And they were like 180, 190 million. And then it went to a guy from New York. And every time the bidding happened, I was always the number 2 bid. I was funny. And then like the first time was Michael Hackman. He was here. I was there. CIM was there. The second time Hackman was out, CIM jumped 20 million over me. I went down 15 million, figuring there's a little distress. And COVID had just started. And I was like, okay, they came. I was shocked. They blew out. Then the third round, I go, okay, I got to get it. Then they got a bidder out of nowhere who never really was going to get the deal done. And he threw out a number, but he wasn't real. And then he fell out. And then we put the property in escrow in May of 2021. And we went non-refundable end of June, and we closed August 19th of 21. And but I mean, it was like a falling knife, the price.
And so what, in terms of the game plan, I mean, what is the game plan with that site then?
So we're entitled for 950 units, a mix of condos and apartments. We're going to do it. We're redesigning some of the product to make it less dense appearing. We're converting some of the empty department store boxes into, I would say, institutional uses per se. Office, but with an institutional tenant, could be a university. And then we think the retail, when it's repackaged and remarketed, we've had a tremendous amount of leasing demand for the site. It's crazy. I mean, people say the market's dead. I've got LOIs for about 200,000 feet of new leases right now at the mall, which is crazy.
Incredible.
Yeah, it's incredible at much higher numbers than we would have thought. It's funny because of where we're located with the new world with all the ESG requirements. We're like sort of like the perfect ESG site.
Right.
And we got a subway station that opens tomorrow in our site. We have a brand new subway station in the middle of our mall. In our mall, we're 2 miles from Culver City, and we have a land basis of, I don't know, I'm trying to do math at the top of my head. I want to say $60 a square foot on land, and on FAR about $40 an FAR foot is our land basis in the deal.
Is this the deal that gives you the most excitement right now? Or are there other deals?
I think this and Crossroads. Crossroads has been something I've worked on in a sense where I saw the property in 2004 and wanted to buy it, and ended up making a deal in 2014. We were entitled in 2019, and then all the CEQA challenges started. We had 2.5 years of litigation. We won 7 different lawsuits against AIDS Healthcare. And we recapitalized the first phase last year. We'll recap the second phase by February of next year, maybe even surprise do it this year. But our plan is to start construction in July of next year. We're doing our plans right now through the city. And I think both Crossroads and Crenshaw are generational projects in the sense, I mean, there's stuff that will be known around the world. When you're looking at the Academy Awards, the red carpet from the Academy Awards is 100 yards from our site. So when you do the red carpet here, you'll see 3 towers. I mean, 5-6 years from now, the 3 towers of Crossroads, 3 30-story towers going up, looking down the red carpet. And when you look at the housing market and the actual disposable personal income of the people that live within a mile or two of that mall, it blows people away. People go, oh, it's a poor area. No, actually, the disposable personal income next to that site is higher than it is in Hollywood. People don't realize that. And the neighborhood's been great to work with. The homeowners groups they want something done. They've been ignored for a long time. People have looked at other areas. And I remember hearing about the Crenshaw Mall 20 years ago. Mm-hmm. And when I was in development, it's like, oh, there's a deal here. There's this site. And for 20 years, it's languished. And you know what? We're going to get it done. We're doing it. We're getting it done. And we're very excited about it. And
yeah, look, as a Los Angelino born and bred, I've always known about that location and that site, and I'm looking forward to seeing the end product.
No, it's like I said, we'll start our first construction there. We'll start our apartments in June of next year. Our first phase is
So you keep talking about the tough regulatory environment in LA. We have a mayoral election in 4 weeks. I'm not going to get into politics as to who you want, although I know who you want. If you were mayor,
you don't. What's that?
If you were
mayor, oh boy,
okay, what would you do to change the city? Because, like I said, and as our listeners can hear, you are one of the most prolific developers. You deal with the city. You deal with politicians on a daily basis. So what's needed to change the city? Because you have to admit, this city has deteriorated in certain regards over the last 20, 30 years.
Well, here's the thing. At the end of the day, I think people care most about safety and security. Okay. We're not safe right now. We have and I'll say it, we have a horrific district attorney. He is terrible. I think more than the mayor, we need to deal with the DA. Because right now, criminals think they have a free pass at everything in life. And I think in 2 years, I think the recall, I don't know what happened with it. I think it was a lot of bullshit, pardon my French. But I think in 2 years, Gascon will be on his ass. And get rid of him. Let him go and fuck up some other city. Okay. And I don't care. I'm a registered Democrat. He is bad news.
How do you really feel, Schwartzman?
No, I hate the fucking guy. He's a piece of shit. He's trash. And I'm not getting into politics, but there are certain states that are doing well. Why is that? Because I think they're more worried about the safety and security of the citizens than they are about some certain rights. Okay. I mean, like, guys, everybody's the same here. Okay. Nobody needs to be treated differently. At the end of the day, we all put our clothes on the same. We're all going to go to the same place. Okay. Created by the same God. So at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter. and we need to work a little more together and stop fighting each other. Like when I went to South LA, I heard all this noise, and there was a lot of stuff. I'm a corrupt, racist, gentrifier. I hate women. I'm anti-Latino. I'm anti-Latino. My wife's Venezuelan. Okay, I'm anti-Latino. Okay, so I had all this crap about me. Okay, and it was from a group, and they were trying to scare me off, and they were going on radio stations. There was on MSNBC a show in the morning where they cited an article written by Eater LA as to why this group was more qualified than my group to buy the site. Dude, Eater LA, they're a food blog. And nobody says that because it's a certain group and they say it's a certain way. So what I've learned is when I've gone to the neighborhood, I actually had a meet and greet last October at Post and Beam, which is a restaurant in our mall. And I had about 250 people from the community. And I said, guys, listen, we're going to build a great project here. We're not going to tell you what you want to hear, but when we say something, we're going to do it. Okay. And we have a development agreement. We're going to follow the rules. If you want to ask for more, we're not your guy. Do you want to get a project built, or do you want to keep trying to get something out of us? Because if you want to do that, I'm not your developer. We're going to have a lot of problems, but we're entitled. But at the end of the day, here are the rules. I'm going to live by the rules. I'm not going to break them, and we're going to build the project and get it done right. And you know what? They gave me like a standing ovation. Because for like,
hard to argue with that.
Yeah, but here's the thing. But people want to go and say what they think people want to hear, and sometimes I think people need to hear the hard truth.
Mm-hmm.
And the city's in crisis. And honestly, I mean, listen, the mayor, I'll tell you, I don't know what the mayor can do because we're driven by the council. What's scary to me more is that we're electing socialist candidates that want to defund the police and decriminalize homelessness even further. And I'm not saying they're criminals, but they need to be dealt with. They can't just be left there to die on the streets. That's the crime.
Well, I think David Schwartzman in the next election, you need to put your hat in the ring.
2030. No, but listen, at the end of the day, listen, I really think it's very sad what's going on, but LA will survive. LA will get through it. Sometimes you have to bottom out before you can go back. I think San Francisco.
Yep. I'll continue.
San Francisco is actually on the way up. Believe it or not, people say, "Oh my God, maybe not the city," but they're going to clean up their act. They bottomed out. I'm not sure we're ready to bottom out yet. I think this election will tell us if we are or we aren't. I think if we get, pardon my French, this socialist crap agenda, the bottoming will happen in the next 2 to 4 years, and then they'll be thrown out.
Yeah, the residents are going. The residents are not going to have the services. It's going to be unsafe, and so many people will experience the negative aspects of our city that you're
look at you. You live in the Palisades. You have a councilman. You have a council seat open. You have 2 people running with 2 different agendas completely. One thinks the guy that was there is great and just need to be nicer. And the other one, the attack on the woman, Tracy Park, is, well, she used to be a Republican. All kidding aside, who gives a shit what party you are? You need to get things cleaned up. And it just needs tough action. Who's ever willing to do the best person for the job? Not about some quota. The best person for the job is what people need.
Well, I'm glad we didn't turn this into a political conversation.
No, we didn't.
So, look, we have a couple minutes left. I want to do a lightning round with you, Mr. Schwartzman. So a few questions, quick answers, and we'll wrap up.
Let's do it.
Ready for that?
I'm ready, buddy.
I mean, you live, breathe, drink, eat, sleep real estate. But if you were not in the real estate business, what would you be doing?
Be a movie producer.
A movie producer?
Yeah, I think so.
What type of movies?
I got the great last name. Schwartzman film. No. I don't know. I think that, I mean, honestly, I love what I do. I always say I could have worked on Wall Street, but I don't know. I think I found my niche in life. And, sometimes people are starting for work and you get lucky and you fall into it. Sometimes people never do. I love what I do. I wake up every morning looking forward to work.
Sounds like a line from Jerry Maguire. The best advice someone has given you.
Specialize. Don't be good at one thing. Don't be a jack of all trades. Find something you're good at and focus. And that in real estate, that's an asset class. I see guys that jump around. Oh, I'm doing a development in Florida. I'm doing stuff here. Like, dude, you're going to get smoked. Focus.
And I assume that's the advice you'd give to someone who's starting out at 25 years old?
I would say learn from the bottom. I would say learn from the bottom up. Know every part of the business before you go on your own. You need to. It's way too hard right now. I think it's gotten more corporate development. It's gotten more and more corporate. Like 20, 30 years ago, there were a lot more entrepreneurial developers than there are today. There's still guys out there, but it's getting more and more corporate as we speak. Like the home building world, there are no private guys anymore.
Do you use Excel?
Guys in my office do.
Do you know how to use Excel?
I knew Lotus 1, 2, 3. I know. No, I know. But you know what? I do it in my head.
Yeah. Well,
I'm in my head. By the way, I'm going to be honest about spreadsheets. Spreadsheets are the manufacturer deal. If I like with my little calculator and pen and paper can't figure out a deal in my head, it's not a deal worth doing. Because all the Excel is going to do is tweak it to make me underwrite it to work. If it doesn't work on a pen and paper, it doesn't work.
All right, a couple more. Is there a deal out there that you didn't stretch for, you didn't do, and you're still kicking yourself despite all these other deals? Is there one out there that you wish you did?
Yes. There was a site 26 years ago, and I lost it to a friend of mine who's named Michael Rosenfeld, who you know, in Thousand Oaks. And it was 400 acres. It was Wells Fargo. It was owned by Olympia, New York. It was a huge developer in the 80s. It went down. And I had the deal, and they came back to me and they go, Mike raised his bid $250,000. Would you up another $250,000? And I was like, but dude, we had a deal. And they go, well, he went higher. Can you go at $250,000 over? And I said, no. So I had to up my bid $500,000, and I didn't. And he ended up entitling the deal, and he sold lots. And that deal made about $50 million. So yeah, I wish that was a deal. I would have stretched 500 to make 50. Yes.
Wow. Hindsight.
Hindsight.
In 10 years, when we do the 10-year reunion show of the Real Talk with David Schwartzman, where am I going to find you?
Sitting here, man. Maybe in a different office, but I'll be here doing the same thing.
Attacking. I love it.
Keep going, man.
Schwartzman, I can't thank you enough. You're the best.
I love you. You're the best.
I really appreciate it.
Thanks, buddy.
All right.
Take care. Thank you.
You've been listening to Real Talk, Real Estate Discussions with Andrew Kirsh. You can catch prior episodes at www.sklarkirsh.com and on YouTube, LinkedIn, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and more. Thank you for your positive reviews, comments, and sharing this show with others.